Hi, and welcome to Dear Andy, where each week we answer your college football and Husky Guy sartorial questions here at SI.com. Let's get right to the questions. Our first one comes from the eSports Guy. Is Florida's announcement about no more FCS foes a bellwether for the end of BCS-FCS matchups, or just an outlier? Well, we thought Florida had announced that it wasn't playing any more FCS opponents. Will Muschamp said that earlier in the week and then was quickly corrected by his athletic director, Jeremy Foley. They are not going to make a policy to not schedule FCS opponents. They would just rather not do it. The Big Ten does have a policy going forward. Once the conference gets to 9 league games a year, they're not going to schedule any more FCS opponents. Does this mean the practice is over? Does this mean we're not going to see any more of those SEC team versus FCS team in November, the week before rivalry week? I don't know. I think it's still going to happen in isolated cases, but I think it's going to happen less and less. But the perception among fans, if they see an FCS team on the schedule, they're probably going to stay away from the stadium in droves. And in this era of the 60-inch television screen, where the home viewing experience is probably better than the stadium viewing experience, you do not need to give them any more incentive to stay home. And that is what Jim Delaney was thinking. That's what some of these conference commissioners are thinking when they say, listen, you've got to schedule another Big Five school and you're out of conference. Right now, they can't wipe all the FCS teams off their schedule for the next few years. But if they decide today that they're not going to play them anymore, they can get rid of them in about 5 years. And the market may force them to. What will be interesting is, in some states, will the state legislature jump in and say, hey, you've got to play these teams because you need to help them with their budgets. And I think the state of South Carolina would be an interesting test case, because if Clemson and South Carolina all of a sudden stop scheduling South Carolina State and the Citadel and Furman and Wofford, there might be some government intervention. It would be pretty interesting to see how that collided with the fans' desire to just see a little bit better game. Our next question comes from Moonlight Graham. I loved you in Field of Dreams. Who will be the first Tennessee player to win the Heisman, Jalen Hurd or Josh Malone? Now, Mr. Moonlight is referring to two members of the Volunteers' vaunted 2014 sign class, both guys from Middle Tennessee. Hurd, a big running back, kind of the Pied Piper for that recruiting class. He really helped Butch Jones land the rest of the guys. Malone, rangy, long, athletic receiver from Gallatin. Let's hold off on the Heisman talk. I know Tennessee fans are excited about what Butch Jones is doing, and they have very good reason to be excited. But Jones has tried to temper expectations for a reason. He keeps telling people that Tennessee is several years away, because that's probably the truth. This year, Tennessee has to replace all 5 offensive linemen and all 4 defensive linemen. Now, having to replace all 5 offensive linemen means it probably doesn't matter how good Jalen Hurd is and how good Josh Malone is. There are going to be some bumps in the road. The good thing is there are guys on Tennessee's roster like Jalen Hurd and Josh Malone. It's going to get better. But there may be some rough patches in the early going, so have some patience with Butch Jones. He's doing what he needs to do, but he inherited a pretty tough situation. Our next question comes from Michael, and he asks, Les Miles, Mark Richt, Nick Saban, Gus Malzahn, Steve Spurrier, and the late, great Atlanta Journal-Constitution columnist Louis Grizzard walk into a bar. Who wins? Well, Michael, I think it depends on what the contest in the bar is. If they're going to get in a Roadhouse-style brawl, I guess I got to go with Les Miles. We're talking about a former undersized offensive lineman in Michigan. Seems like the type of guy that if someone cracked a pool cue over his face, he'd sniff and shake his head. I don't believe I asked you to wipe my nose, sir. And then just clean house. I think I would take Les Miles in that situation. Now, are we talking about working with the ladies? Because in that case, you got Mark Richt, Steve Spurrier, former quarterbacks. Quarterbacks get all the girls. Although knowing a little bit about Louis Grizzard, a fine master storyteller, if you know his history, he was very, very good at reeling in the ladies. If you know his divorce court history, he wasn't very good at keeping them. But in the one-night bar situation, I might give him the edge because the ladies love a storyteller. Our next question comes from another Michael, and it's a subject near and dear to my heart. I'm a 46 long jacket. Where do I go to find a decent-looking, affordable sports coat? Michael, 46 long, you're lucky. You should be able to go just about anywhere. Macy's, Dillard's. Now, when you get past 48 long, when you get into the 50s, and I'm in the low 50s, your selection narrows considerably. Do not waste money on things that don't fit. You will just look worse. Save your pennies. Go to one of those places like Suit Supply, Brooks Brothers, Nordstrom. They all have it, and have them measure you. Just because you like to eat a little bit doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to look good.